are now tuned into the greatest sports show on the planet. That's Prince, and he's Bardi. And you're now listening to Prince and Bardi. Buckle up.
Episode 111 of Prince and Bardi, your favorite sports podcast. Now, let me get that right. Favorite sports show in the world. What's up, man?
You already know, man. We here. Back at it. Got so much to talk about. Let's dive in.
Let's go right to it, man. Gino Auriemma, man. 11 titles. UConn defeated South Carolina in a They beat the brakes off him, man. I can't even put it any other way, man. We thought Dawn Staley was gonna get back, but Gino prevailed. Paige Beckers prevailed. They got a freshman post player. She's amazing. It's just UConn dominance, man. When you look at just dominant collegiate programs, obviously what Nick Saban did at Alabama. What do you think of the UConn dynasty, man? Maya Moore played there, Diana Taurasi. Just UConn just gets the number one recruits. You know, they had the number one freshman in the nation there, set the all-time rebounding record the first half. What do you make of just UConn's dominance when it comes to women's basketball? Why do they get it right and everybody else doesn't?
Part of it's coaching. Gino is one of the greatest coaches we've ever seen in the history. You know, when you have a perfect program, the program perfectly works and it does what it's supposed to. So when you look at UConn, they have their players prepared. They have a great element of picking players. They know what they're doing as far as the players they pick. You've seen what the freshman is doing, the records
They're strong.
Yeah. I mean, you just can't do anything with them. And so when you look at what they did versus South Carolina, it just blows my mind. It blows my mind. I honestly was rooting for Dawn Staley, and it didn't pan out. But it is what it is. You know, when you look at the situation, you have to pay homage. You have to give them love, and you just have to keep pushing. Looking at the history of the game, we're looking at the Phil Jackson of women's basketball. We're looking at the Red Auerbach of women's basketball. We're looking at the Bill Walsh of women's basketball, college basketball. I mean, just great minds. You know, when you know the sport and you could break X's and O's down, you're a leader among men. And now you're a leader among great women.
No, in fact, you know, Gino's been doing this thing, man. You know, the interview page, and she was just saying that she could talk to him about anything, you know, with his sarcasm, tough love, talk to him about finances, about golf, about winning, pressures of social media. You know, obviously his recruiting skills are second to none. You know, Sarah Strong, like I said, one of the best freshmen ever, a rebounding beast. You know, her fundamentals on the block really helped Paige. Between her and Paige, inside and outside, they dominated. You know, Paige said she would be back. We know Paige had just a tough go at it early in her career with those injuries, but Paige is a winner. So salute to UConn once again for reaching the mountaintop. But let's go to the other side, man. A lot of people didn't fare too well, and that's Duke, man. I got to give you your flowers. You picked Houston before. As soon as you open up those brackets, you said, this is the year Houston's going to win it all. You called it. So I got to give you those flowers. But let's go into the game, you know. Let me read an interesting stat before we get to that. Duke led by 14 with 8 minutes left. Duke led by 9 with 2 minutes left. Duke led by 6 with 34 seconds left. Duke led by 3 with 25 seconds left. Duke led by 1 with 19 seconds left, and they still lost. Now, a lot was made of Cooper Flag. You know, we talked about the comparisons. You know, a lot of people was feeling the Karolinko and Scottie Pippen comp. But there was some criticism of Cooper Flag, had some mistakes down the stretch. You know, he's young still. We got to remember, Cooper Flag is realistically supposed to be a high school senior right now. You know, he reclassified to go and advance to Duke. So when you look at Duke, did they wet the bed? Is it one of the biggest collapses that you've seen?
Well, I say yes, but I'm gonna ask you a question, and I know the answer to the question. Who is the coach of Duke? Because I know it's not Coach K.
Nah,
Because
Shire.
yeah, so if it's Shire, and we know it's Shire, would this happen on the Coach K's watch? So you have my answer right there. The reason why Duke lost the game is I blame coaching. The coach should have known better what he was doing in the situation. Should have called a timeout. Should have did a little bit more with the players. He should have had them better prepared. Coach K was there. This wouldn't have happened. Coach K would have not allowed this to happen. And so, honestly speaking, when I was doing my brackets, I didn't have Florida and Houston. I did have Houston, but I didn't have Florida and Houston. And when it got to this game here, I said my bracket was broken. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, this is Coach K's Duke Blue Devils. And it wasn't Coach K's Blue Devils. It was who it was. And we see now that the coach does not have the players ready. They want to blame Cooper Flag. How are you going to blame Cooper Flag? Come on, he's not even prepared for this moment. This is his first time in the moment. So it's not all on him. It's on the coach. The coach didn't have him prepared. They had a lead, they had a meltdown, and Houston is going to the championship game. I'm excited. I hope Houston wins it all because it makes me look right. I mean, so far I'm batting 2 for 2 in sports as far as with the Eagles and with the Houston. Now we got to see what happens in basketball because you know me, I want to pick the Lake Show, but we got to see first when the playoffs start. But for right now, I blame the coach. The coach should have did something better. It's the same thing with the women's college championship. You look at the coaching. And that's what it always boils down to. Who has you prepared? Yes, you have to have the talent, but the X's and O's also works as the pros and Joes.
For sure. Let's just stay with Duke real quick because I saw an interesting quote. They asked Giannis, Giannis obviously came over from Greece. And he said, if he were to go to college, what college would he go to? And he said Duke. Now, Coach K is on record for having 5 national titles. So if he gets Giannis, does he have 6? What does a young Greek freak do over there?
He has 7. He gets Giannis and him gonna win 2. Listen, if he would have got Giannis, LeBron, or even Kobe, this man would have about 12. And Kobe and LeBron and Giannis would probably have 2 more rings on their repertoire. Coach K does not get the respect he deserves. You look at it when the dream team broke down, we kept losing until Coach K came in. Let's really look at that. We were losing until Coach K came in. They brought the right coach in to get the U.S. men's basketball team back in order. That's who Coach K is. Coach K is a great coach. He's probably, if we're doing top 5 coaches all time, he's on my top 5 list. And he doesn't coach pros. He is an amazing, great coach. He knows the sport. He knows his players. He knows his system. He's a winner.
No, 100%, man. Speaking of winners, the Hall of Fame was announced, man. Obviously, Coach K is going to get honored. Carmelo Anthony, notably, and Dwight Howard. So, obviously, we know Carmelo. One is a freshman, one of the greatest college players ever. So a lot of people are looking at Cooper Flag to accomplish what Carmelo did and Anthony Davis and win a national championship as a freshman and lead your team. But when you look at Carmelo Anthony's career, what's the first thing you think about when you think about Melo?
I probably think about that Western Conference Finals that went 6 games versus Kobe Bryant. That was one of the greatest Western Conference Finals I ever saw.
For the Nuggets.
Yeah, that was the only time I ever thought that Kobe had a chance to lose in the conference finals. That's the only time. Other than that, I think everybody who Kobe's played in the Western Conference Finals, whether with Shaq or by himself, he would win. Even when he lost that series versus Phoenix, I wasn't betting against me.
Nah, for sure, man. It's Carmelo. It's I'm not gonna say love hate because I don't say hate. Hate's not the right word. Melo is so dynamic. Been watching him since Oak Hill, man. Him just being a dominant player. He always been compared to LeBron, same size. same body type. You know, they best friends as well. But I just think underachieved, man. You know, just and I'm torn because it's like you got to get that money to secure the bag. You know, when he had that chance in 2010 to link up with LeBron, link up with D Wade, and then you just choose to go back to New York. It's like, man, why wouldn't you just move on? Why wouldn't you just give yourself a chance? So I always think of that with Melo, where a lot of guys don't usually have a chance to write their own story. You know, they blame Braun for taking his career in his hands. They blame, you know, D Wade, a lot of these, Durant notably, but Carmelo had that same chance, and he kind of chose that money and to be a solo gunner. And I think it hurt him. You know, you can't take away one of the greatest scorers ever, scoring all three levels, could get 50 in a phone booth on any defender. But that's always a stain to me with Melo.
Question. I got a question for you, and it's along with Melo. It's on Melo. I was looking at Nightcap the other day, and they was talking about the same thing we talking about, and they said, "Do you put number 15 in the Raptors?" But if you put it in the Raptors, we have to remember there's another number 15 that's playing right now. He got 3 MVPs in the championship. Is he the best number 15 to play for Denver, in your opinion, Prince?
Joke, come on, man. Come on. It's a joke. Listen, we love Melo, man, but come on, it's only one Joker, and he actually won a chip for the city. So it's like any guy who wins a championship for that city, it don't even matter, you know. Like that's like Donovan Mitchell could have the same number as Braun. Come on, you know what the Cavs gonna retire.
That's true.
But I think he'll be in the Ring of Honor or whatever they do with Denver. But 3 MVPs, a championship, you know, breaking records. It's you can't even compare. But
Has 2 numbers ever been retired in the same stadium or the same basketball arena?
I got to look that up. That's a hell of a question. I got to look that up. But I mean, it's tough. You know, I think for sure you got to retire that number 15. Nobody could wear that in Denver. You know, once Joker leaves, that's for damn sure. But let's go in the paint, man. D. Howard, Dwight Howard, obviously got the Lakers a chip in 2020. They say he's the origin story for Joker, that he got Joker in the gym, lost all that weight because, you know, Dwight locked Joker up, man. You know, he was physical with him, you know, really testing Joker's limit. Joker came back in better shape. 3 MVPs later in the chip, you know, we're talking about retiring his jersey. So what's Dwight Howard's career? What do you think about with Dwight Howard? Obviously, dunk champion, all defensive team, defensive player of the year, he got snubbed off top 75, which is egregious to use Stephen A's wording. But when you think about Dwight Howard, what comes to mind?
Probably one of the greatest rebounding and blocking centers we've ever seen. He definitely can jump out the gym. I never liked that he took the Superman name because I knew Shaq was going to be a hater with it. And the Diesel all deserving to be Superman because he was the real Superman. But White was a great center. We're talking about the only man that prevented us from seeing the greatest NBA finals we probably would have seen of all time, Kobe versus LeBron.
100%.
At the height of his career, Kobe still in his prime. We would have saw whether Bron or Kobe won, it still would have been a great finals. It would have been better than what we saw with the Magic versus the Lakers, 4-1, that garbage. But he did eliminate LeBron. He was probably the only one from the East who made LeBron not make a finals on his watch. And that's something to say that's great for his career. Also won a ring with LeBron, so he gets love for that as well, too. I'll probably say he is the 3rd greatest defensive center I've ever seen in the history of basketball. The 3rd greatest defensive center I've seen in basketball.
You can't shoot. Nobody can argue. I'll never argue with that. You know, Dwight Howard, he had a rough go, man. Obviously, those injuries, his back injuries, you know how explosive he was. So when he was with Harden, he wasn't 100%. Think about it. He's with 3 or 4 of the greatest shooting guards ever with Kobe and James Harden, and he wasn't right with either one of them. You know,
True.
his back wasn't together. But Dwight Howard, they better redo that, man. And he definitely should have been top 75. You could have took a lot of guys out and put Dwight in, but I know they'll do a top 100 here soon, and Dwight Howard would definitely be in there. But let's keep it moving, bro. What you know what's funny, man? When you're one of those players like a Jordan, LeBron, and Giannis, you spoil people with your stats, right? Where they could get MVP. Jordan could have got how many MVPs Jordan should have had? About 10.
Jordan should have 11.
LeBron, same way. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this new generation is Giannis, where the numbers he's putting up, man, is ridiculous, man. Giannis is the first player ever, 35 points, 20 assists, 15 rebound game. We're looking at it's almost like he's like a modern day Wilt in the sense of we're just taking him for granted. You know, he's going to be somebody where my son is going to look up in the record books like, yo, who was this dude? Was this are these real stats? He's just so dominant, so consistent. Obviously, injuries have slowed him down. He's supposed to have 3 more rings. But what do you think about Giannis? Do we just have fatigue with Giannis of his greatness?
I think it's markets, Prince. When you look at certain markets, that's what kind of does it with certain players. We only know 2 players to go to a no-name market and make it into a big-name market, and that's LeBron and Michael Jordan. Nobody knew of the Chicago Bulls. Chicago Bulls, what, Orlando Woolrich? Really? We having this conversation? Mike put Chicago on the map. LeBron put Cleveland on the map. When Mark Price and Craig Elo and them boys was there, we always knew Michael would eliminate them because it was a low-market team. You knew that. Giannis is a great talent, but Milwaukee does not market him as he should. We can go back to history. Where did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as Lou Alcindor, started his career? In Milwaukee. And they had to ship him out to L.A. to make him a name. I mean, he was a name in basketball. He did win a championship with Oscar Robertson, but it's the market. I think Milwaukee's the problem. If Giannis was on a bigger name market, maybe a Miami, a team in Texas, a team in New York, a team in Los Angeles, well, you know, when you notice players from their tenure in a big market town. I mean, when people talk, we just talked about Carmelo. When people talk about Melo, we know Melo for his New York days more than we know him for his. I mean, we know basketball, so we know him from Denver. But most people remember the Knick days more than they remember the Denver days, and that's what I think about with Giannis. Giannis is such a great talent, but playing in Milwaukee, I mean, people don't even remember the Milwaukee championship that Giannis won, let alone that. So when you look at that, I think it's because of the market that makes him down. If he and that's what I love about him, though. He's a loyal cat. He's loyal to the people in Milwaukee. He loves them. I mean, anybody who plays it, they love that city and that town. They're gonna love on you, but at the same time, it's not a big name market. Not everybody gets to see the teams play, and you're not gonna remember the players.
No, that's real markets. Speaking of that, man, I think you will see Giannis and Luka here soon, man. I think that's a Laker move to get a classic big, a superstar big. You know, obviously LeBron's on his way out, still playing at a high level, but I think Giannis will be Luka's running mate. Rob Pelinka will make that happen. I think him and Dan, Giannis probably got one more year in Milwaukee, man, before and I think they'll mutually want to move on. I don't even think it's gonna be drama. Come on, man. You can't waste. I'm not gonna say waste your career because you got a chip, but he's too good to be in that small market. Come on over to LA, man. We need you over there. But let's talk Lake Show. 22 threes tonight. 22 threes. Tied the franchise record. We all know that it's a make or miss league. You know, one day you're the windshield, one day you're the bug. So we know tonight we were the windshield, and we had we had SGA on that hood. You know, no free throw attempts. His first time in 1,000+ games without free throw attempted. You know, he lives at the line like James Harden did, like D Wade did in that 06 year. So as a Laker fan, I'm torn, right? Because we played Golden State. You know, Golden State played a hell of a game. It was a really good game, but I think that was a pivotal game because that was Luka's origin game, right? Luka said, "This is on me." He knew they was targeting him. Ever since that game, Luka's just been dominant. You know, what do you think about the Lakers just clicking on all levels, hitting threes? You know, Luka's a shot maker, but beyond that, his biggest skill is being a shot creator. You know, Dorian Finney-Smith, what he said, butt naked, butt naked, wide open. So when you see Luka, what does he bring to this team in the playoffs, and why don't people want to see us?
I'm going to make a statement that people may say I'm tripping because you got Bird, McHale, and Parrish. You got Magic, Worthy, and Kareem. You got Michael, Scotty, and Rodman. This is the best offensive big three in the history of the NBA, by far. There's nobody, not Ray Allen, KG, and Paul Pierce. No, this is the best scoring big three I've ever seen in the history of basketball. Reeves can score at a clip anywhere on the court. LeBron can score at a clip anywhere on the court. And Luka. I think that if we go on all cylinders scoring, no team can deal with us because you have to factor in we have shooters around LeBron, around Reeves, and around Luka Doncic. And the funny thing is that we haven't been operating on all cylinders. This showed us what we look like. The best team in the NBA right now, the best record, the best defense. We dropped 22 threes on them. And the thing is, Luka's eyes lit up every time he sees OKC because people always be talking about how good SGA is. People always talk about how good OKC is. If you ever notice one thing about Luka Doncic, when you say this is the best player in the league, he has his best games versus him.
Yeah.
You say the Joker, he goes and shows the Joker, this is what I can do. When you say Ant Edwards, you saw what he did to Ant Edwards last year. He was like, "Oh, Ant, you the best player." I remember before that series, I told everybody Luka's going to show us behind. Luka is right now has the biggest chip on his shoulder of any superstar in the league. Dallas traded him away, and he wanted to win a ring for Dallas like Dirk Nowitzki. Now he's going to prove with LeBron James and Austin Reeves that this is probably one of the best scoring big threes in the history of the game. I mean, I don't know anybody who is better. Now, I'm not saying it's the best big three. I'm saying it's the best offensive big three we've ever seen because they all can score at a great clip. LeBron can score in his sleep because of his size and bullying to the basket. Reeves can shoot the ball. Reeves was hitting threes. He hit more threes. He hit a bunch of threes tonight. And then you're looking at Luka Doncic. When Luka's as confident as he's playing, he can score at a clip with anybody. I mean, we're talking about a guy who had a 70. The funny thing is we talk about Homeboy's triple-double. Remember, Luka had 70, 12, and 9 versus Atlanta last year. He had 70, 12, and 9. So if we really want to be technical, what we saw Joker did, Luka was already doing that. So we know who Luka Doncic is. Luka can be the best player in the league. He just has to be confident enough to do it.
Nah, I agree. The only other big three offensively, I would argue with that comes to mind, but they obviously had injuries, COVID, would be Harden, Durant, and Kyrie. But we just didn't get a chance to see that materialize. Obviously, a lot of politics because that would have been mind-boggling just to see them click. That's one of the big threes that I wish worked out. But I can't argue with you, man. The Lakers been playing at an all-time clip, and I think that's what we're gonna have to do, man. You know, we're still giving up a lot of easy stuff at the rim. You know, SGA was still able to get to the paint and do things like that, but we're just gonna have to outscore people. It's gonna be a gunslinging. We just gonna have to outscore you, outpace you. You know, push the pace. When Rory's aggressive, attacking the paint, we're great. You know, we got a lot of guys that can get they points in the ISO game, so that'll be interesting. But I've always said OKC can be beat. You know, they got a great record. They're the Atlanta Hawks of the West. You remember those Budenholzer teams?
Mm-hmm.
60-plus wins every year, but they get into the playoffs, they fold. So I think, but remember, they only we talked about this last time. They barely beat the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
Like your line, styles make fights. And I think with the right matchup, and the thing too is, one thing about LeBron and Luka, as a young boy said, they got aura, meaning other players, they get when they get around, when Luka and LeBron on the court, people are just in awe of them. So you might be all defense, like Lou Dort's a hell of a defender. Luka get on the court, he got you looking crazy. You in awe of LeBron. So I think the Lakers can beat anybody, even Boston. You know, LeBron unfortunately got hurt that last game. So we don't even know how that would have, and we almost came back that game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about the matchups, man, and coaching. But like I said, I still want to see what JJ is going to do defensively to protect Luka and just kind of really cover up everybody's flaws.
But we have three great perimeter defenders in Finney Smith, Vando, and Gabe Vincent. They're great defenders. They play great D, and they all three can shoot the three. Vando not at a great clip, but Finney Smith and Gabe at a good at it. The thing that what I like the most about the Lakers is our bench is coming on. They're playing what we don't miss a lead. And it's like to me, they remind me of the Celtics' big three. The players thrive around them, and they still play well. Jackson Hayes, with the funny thing in the world, Jackson Hayes with AD looked terrible.
Yeah.
Jackson Hayes with Luka Doncic looks like a decent center.
World.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, whenever I see him, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but I think Sideshow Bob from Simpsons, because that's what he looked like. Looked like Sideshow Bob.
You know what's funny? It kind of reminds me of the Clint Capella situation, where I always say James Harden got Clint Capella $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
I think James Harden about to get Zubac paid again. So great players like Harden, LeBron, and Luka, they know how to get their center, especially rim running bigs. That's a dream come true. Look at Varejao back in the days. That was LeBron. He said one of his favorite teammates of all time.
Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson was a bum everywhere else he played, but when he was in Cleveland, he was a baller.
You just get motivated, man. But
Prince and Bardi is your #1 source for all things sports. Now streaming on Spotify and iTunes.
Let's get back into college, man. It's set, Florida versus Houston, but a star was born during this tournament as well, man. Walter Clayton Jr., for Florida, big game. 30 points back-to-back in the game, Final Four, and coming into these other games, man. So what I like about Walter Clayton Jr., man, besides the big buckets, he has that underdog mentality, man. He kind of reminds you of Jalen Brunson and the Fred VanVleet, just undersized dudes, but they just killers, right? Jalen Brunson just plays big. You just never doubt him. And Fred VanVleet during that Toronto Raptors run was second to none, hitting big shots, just doing this thing, almost like how Chauncey Billups was during that Detroit run. It's certain guards that get into their bag that you just can't stop. But Florida hasn't been back in a minute, man, since the Joakim Noah days, the Al Horford days. So when you look at Florida, man, I know you pick Houston to win, but do you think Florida could pull it off? These teams are 30. Let me get this right. Let me get these stats right for you. Florida and Houston are combined 35-1 over their last 36 games. And they play Monday. They play tomorrow night, 8:50. So this is a slugfest. This is going to be a great defensive matchup. So what are you predicting with this game with Florida?
Well, first off, I thought, even though I picked Houston, I thought it was going to be Duke and Florida. And I thought that Florida was going to give Duke a good game, but I was saying Cooper Flag and them boys would have pulled it out and Duke would have won the championship. Now we got Houston, who's less proven than Duke, but of course they were proven because they did beat Duke, so I can't even say that. And Houston plays better defense. They play better defense than Florida. I'm torn because my prediction says Houston, but we're here in the dirty South. We're here in South Florida, and it would be nice to have another championship in Gainesville, a nice parade, a nice championship. I know they're going crazy right now in Gainesville.
Sure.
I was there 3 times last year. It's a beautiful town. They party a lot. They do a lot of stuff. When there's a Florida Gators game, you can't go down the streets. They literally got them walled off. You got to go down the back streets just to get around. So it's going to be good for the Gators to actually win a national championship as far as for college basketball. And I agree with you. I concur. Clayton is a baller, man. He made a name for himself. His stock when he does get drafted is up there.
Oh yeah.
Anybody would love to have him. You know who he reminds me of? Mario Chalmers. When Chalmers did what he did.
Yeah.
I see the same trajectory for his career. He could be a champion in pro and help a team like the Lakers, Celtics, whoever. Pick him and hit some big shots for him. You know, be another B.J. Armstrong or Mario Chalmers for a championship team. The thing with it is this. Houston got some dogs, man.
Yeah.
They got some dogs. And you know as much as I do, Prince. One thing they don't know about Prince and Bardi, me and you love dogs because look at our football teams. Yeah. Dogs. We love dogs. The Giants and the Eagles is built on dogs. And Houston got dogs. That's the only reason why I picked them, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, who has the most dogs? Houston does. Now, it's going to take a major game. Clayton going to have to bring his A++ game versus Houston. Because Houston, you got to look at it from this way. When has Houston had a championship? Who hasn't had a championship longer, Houston or Florida? So these guys are trying to do it for Houston, man. Do it for Texas. They're going to go crazy in Texas. I'm sticking with my pick, but would I be shocked to see Florida win? No, I would not. I think Florida, they worked hard. They belong there. Their defense is not shabby at all. They have a good defense as well. I think they're in the top 10 percentile as well in defense. So when you look at the game, I think it's going to be a defensive game, but I'm picking Houston 84, Florida 79.
All right, there you go. You heard it, man. That's the Bardi prediction. But let's get to this ice check, man.
The Ice Check with Bardi.
He shoots, he scores!
Talking all things hockey with the latest news and highlights.
Let's get in past the great one tonight, man. So we've been following we've been on Ovechkin watch for the last couple of weeks. What does a record like this mean? You know, we see Jerry Rice's records. You know, we see Tom Brady's records. You know, we see LeBron recent record. When it comes, I guess, put it in basketball terms, you know, I always want that. What does a record like this mean to pass somebody like Gretzky?
And I know people are going to say I'm being hypocritical, but because, you know, in basketball, I got Bron as the GOAT. He's still not the GOAT. We're talking about Gretzky, man. Gretzky, he's an icon. He is, when we talk hockey,
he's the standard.
He's the standard. Now, for what Ovechkin has done, he's put him above the likes of Sidney Crosby, of the likes of other greats throughout hockey history. He's a great player. He's definitely a great player. I think he needs a couple more championships for us to put him in the Mount Rushmore of hockey players. He's borderline on the Mount Rushmore. I would say, remember now, Mount Rushmore's 4. It's not 5. So if we're doing top 5 hockey players all time, Ovechkin's in the top 5 by far, and he was top 5 before he broke the record. Ovechkin is a beast, man, and for him to be scoring these goals at the clip of his age and who he is, he's one of the oldest players in hockey. The thing I like about this story is not just him breaking the record. The Capitals have a good record. So now imagine, Prince. He breaks this record and he wins the championship. He's able to do something LeBron, Michael, and Kareem didn't do. Set the record and win a championship the year you set the record. Now, if he does that, Prince, then he breaks Mount Rushmore as 4.
No, it was a dope moment, man. I think even if you like hockey, don't understand, it was cool to just see Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky said, I'm going to be the first person to shake your hand when you beat that. And you got to respect, you know, most of these older dudes who wants their record broken, you know? Let's be real. You know, Eric Dickerson didn't want Saquon beating his record. You know, politically, you're going to say, but who wants that?
You know, the funny thing about that ED record, man, I hope 6 people break his record because he's a punk for that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day,
he petty.
Yeah, that's very petty, man. That's very petty, But one thing I love about Saquon, he took the high road and he got a championship. So at the end of the day, I can say whatever I want, but I'm gonna say this, and I know we're talking about Ovechkin, but Eagles don't win that championship without Saquon. Eagles would lose. They would lose that champ because you have to remember, the Kansas City Chiefs sold out to stop the run, and that's why we were able to pass. They would have never sold out to stop the run if it wasn't for Saquon. So just as much as Jalen Hurts got that MVP, Saquon was the reason why he got it. And so going back to hockey, Ovechkin, his face, his brand is going to be bigger and bigger, and his jersey sales, that's what's going to really help him out. The jersey sales are going to go up crazy. Listen, I ain't going to lie, Prince. I'm going to get me an Ovechkin jersey right now. I'm about to go online, put my order in, and get it popping because he needs his flowers. I remember when he won the championship the first time because he only has one championship on his record. And I never really knew who he was, but my pops loves hockey. So he's like, check this guy out. He's one of the best hockey players you've ever seen. And I watched him play, graceful on the ice, knows how to score, a great leader amongst men. I would love for him to go out. The perfect way for him to retire, break the record, win that Stanley Cup, host that trophy. He don't have to be Stanley Cup Finals MVP. All he has to do is just win the championship and retire.
Yes, sir, man. Let's get to some quick hits real quick, man, as we wrap up. Colorado had a pro day. Shador, Travis Hunter, they did their thing, man. What'd you think about watching Shador? He threw some dots out there, man. A lot of people said his mechanics look great. Do you think he helped his draft stock by doing these private workouts at Colorado?
I mean, his draft stock was going to be good no matter what because of his name. I mean, he was a good player, but when you share that last name of Sanders, 9 times out of 10 you should be good. The only time you share the last name and it didn't pan out was Michael Jordan's sons. Other than that, when you share that last name, you're going to have a good stock. But he did throw some darts out there. He looks good. I just want to see where he's going to get drafted. Everybody keeps saying that from the draft board and draft projections, he's going to go to the Giants. But I want to see where he's going because it's scary that they pick Shador because Shador's going to be in the draft room with 3 bums of quarterbacks. So it's not good. And Deion said that they're going to baptize him when he goes. So we'll see what happens.
Not for sure, man. This is episode 111. Like, we always appreciate the support. Y'all always tweeting us, man. Y'all in the comments arguing with us. You got to remember, man, me and Ace, we always love talking to y'all in the streets. Y'all be DMing us. So we love y'all in the comments, even the haters, man. We appreciate you. That's why we do what we do.
Facts.
So tune in next time, man. Continue to like, continue to share. However you listen to Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, wherever you may be listening to us, YouTube, especially YouTube. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, subscribe. We're going to be having giveaways coming up shortly for our subscribers. So stay locked in and continue watching, listening to the best sports show in the world. Got some dope heat coming your way. Prince and Bardi.
You already know.
Prince and Bardi will be doing live broadcast at several locations around the country. Follow and like all Prince and Bardi's social media pages for exclusive details. There will be game tournaments, sport trivia, best fan contest, and cash giveaways all night. This can be your chance to win big. Prince and Bardi is your #1 source for all things sports. Now streaming on Spotify and iTunes.